Hi, everyone.
I won't do anything bad.
What do you want to do, Morgan?
Get out of this. Get out of
No. Oh my
this.
gosh.
Let me do something. Let me do something.
Okay, I'll let you do one thing. Okay. She wants to do a
Let's
reaction.
see. Let me search it up again. Stop.
Okay.
Please, stop. Please.
Oh my gosh.
Please, stop. Please.
Morgan,
Please.
okay.
Let me do something.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. We'll be starting in like a minute. Just 1 second.
Easy.
It's one of those days. We had a play date earlier. It was very interesting. Okay, one thing, Morgan, and then you gotta go upstairs, okay?
Oh no. Let's see.
My Lord. Okay, guys, patience as my sound technician. Oh gosh. She was supposed to be in swim practice, but that didn't happen.
That's because you suggested that I don't go.
Yeah. Because I have stuff to do. Okay. She just wanted to do the hard thing. Okay, everyone. You just got to meet my daughter, Morgan.
Can you do the sound effect again?
Okay, Gary, she wants you to do a sound effect. Okay,
Yay!
we're starting. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My daughter didn't have school today, so I got to play a little bit today. But welcome to today's microlearning, maximize workplace success through the power of play with Gary Ware. So before we start, in the chat, please enter your name, what company you're from, what city you're dialing in from, and if you can, for those who are in the live Zoom audience, turn on your videos because we want you in the conversation. We love to see your beautiful faces. For those that are watching this on live stream on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, etc., you can interact in the comments. So, make sure you introduce each other, or if you want, add in your LinkedIn if you want to connect that way as well. And we'll be reading the comments throughout. So even if you're on live stream, please interact with us. So this is a microlearning. Our CSS7 microlearning series is focused on how to elevate your career through short training modules. It's a training and development that focuses on offering bite-sized small pieces with just the right amount of information to help learners achieve a goal. This is not a webinar where you passively listen. We want you in this conversation. So the folks who are watching this in the Zoom audience, once again, turn on your videos if you can, and then engage in the comments. Those are live stream, interact in the comments or wherever you're watching this from. So before we begin, for those who are in the live Zoom audience, if you can, put this on gallery mode so you should see some other folks and me. So we always do start with the small quiz. If the answer is yes, raise both hands like this. If you are watching via live stream or you don't have your video on in the live Zoom audience, you could just write yes or no. So first question, how many loved playing when you were younger? Raise both hands if the answer is yes. Second question, how many have found it difficult to play as a grown-up? How many of you have only recently learned how to play? Oh, I see a few of you. How many wish they could be more playful in life? How many wish they could be more playful at work? How many have revisited their views on play now that they either are a parent or have young ones in their lives? Okay, I know that for me was a big one. Thank you so much. So let me get this back. Thank you so much for your honesty. It's I love having these conversations because it really makes me reevaluate and kind of think about how I view and approach playing and life in general. For me, the big change was when I had my daughter. I don't think I knew how to play when I was younger, and I had this conversation before. I was one of those people who just kind of worked, I was always so serious growing up. And it was only recently that I learned how to play, and that was because of my daughter. And I think I mentioned in past talks that I had a big fear of karaoke. And I was just so afraid of like singing. And a lot of that was judgment, right? I was like, I can't sing. But the whole purpose of karaoke is not to be a great singer, it's to have fun, right? And so I broke a big milestone probably last year with the help of Gary and Jeff, who were on our Community of Seven Let's Talk last year. And we were talking about play. And I was like, you know what? I am going to karaoke. And I karaokeed, and mind blown. Now I sing really badly in front of public with no embarrassment at all. But it makes me really think, I mentioned Gary spoke here with Jeff Harry, and they are amazing together if you ever see this. Today we just have Gary, but Jeff said something on one of his social posts. Play is the opposite of perfection. Let me repeat that. Play is the opposite of perfection, because perfection comes wrapped in shape and your ego, shame and ego, while play is really rooted in experimentation, risk, curiosity, wonder. And that was from Jeff Harry, the founder of Rediscover Your Play and Gary's friend and colleague. And it really made me think. And today, my good friend Mita Malik, who's been on the show as well, posted, I spent too long chasing perfection and perfectionism in hopes of hitting or fitting into places that weren't built for me. And that made me really think, the difference between play and competition, right? One is less about winning, play, right? And the other one, because play is really about, it's not about competition, it's about winning, and it's more about having fun, right? Whereas competition is all about winning, and it's kind of tied to perfectionism. And it really talks about comparison, right? I am more than you, so I must be better. And play is really about looking inward and just feeling good and having fun. So I don't give a shit if I can't dance, or if you laugh at me, I'm going to have fun anyway. And that's what I think about when I see Gary, when I see Jeff. And that's why Jeff's quote was so life-changing for me. For most of my life, I just thought I really sucked at playing. Even when I was a kid, like I said, I was more into studying than I was playing with my friends. And I thought that if I worked really hard, I would be successful. But then as I got older, I got burnt out. I got tired, unhappy, uninspired, and I hit a wall. And it was really, as I mentioned earlier, having my daughter Morgan, who you guys all met, who loves to have fun and play. And that was kind of the wake-up call, because I realized I had this child and I didn't know how to play. Right? Like I would see other mothers and they would do peekaboo, and I would just be looking at her like, hey, right? And I really had to learn how to play. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but once I started playing and having fun and laughing and stopped worrying about what other people thought about me, it opened my world. So that's why I'm so excited to have Gary today on this micro learning on how to maximize workplace success through the power of play. So I'd love to introduce Gary, but before I do that, quick, in the chat right now, I want you to type in, and if you're watching on the live stream, I want you to type it in the comments. What's your definition of play? And don't press send till I tell you. Write down in the chat right now, type in, what is your definition of play? I'm going to count down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Stacy sees hobby says play, fun, doing something pleasurable, living in the moment while having fun, laughter. Okay, awesome. Anything that makes me laugh. And I see a lot of fun. Great definitions. Let me see. having fun and sharing. So I see a lot of like laughing, smiling, all these other things. And isn't that the best thing in life, right? So now I kind of want to introduce my good friend Gary. Hi, Gary. Do we get a sound effect?
Yes, we do.
So Gary Ware is the founder of Breakthrough Play. He's a sought-after corporate facilitator and keynote speaker with nearly a decade of experience as a performer in improv theater. He has spoken at the World Domination Summit, AMAs, South by Southwest, etc. He assists teams in unlocking creativity, confidence, and sparks collaboration with experiential methods proven to drive peak performance. And now we can call Gary a author. He just released his book, Playful Rebellion, Maximize Workplace Success Through the Power of Play. Please buy this now. I'm going to put the link in the comments section. Make sure after you read it, I know you're going to love it, but after you read it, make sure you comment as well, because that's how the algorithms recommends books, right? And so we want to make sure we support Gary and his amazing book. So Gary, what is a game or activity that you used to play when you were younger, and what skill do you think you learned from it?
All right. I'm going to say something that I don't typically say, again, because I'm an improv performer, so I need to put myself on the spot. I loved playing forts in my neighborhood growing up. My parents were the type that would, especially during the summer, they would say, go out and play and don't come back until it's dark. And so me and my siblings and my neighbors, we would create forts out of anything in the bushes and behind trees. We would get boxes and loved playing it. And I think the skill that I cultivated by playing that was, one, the ability to be creative and take something and create it into something else, but the ability to lead. And it was one of those things where I had to convince my siblings that my idea of a fort was the best fort. I had to get them on board, and So I would say leadership.
That's awesome. And tell me about what sparked you to kind of write this book. What motivated you? Why do you think it needed to be written? I'd love to kind of hear, before I ask any other questions, like what got you and motivated you to write this book? Because I know we've had conversation about this, like a year ago, and now it's come to life.
Yes. And to be honest, it was something that I was personally fighting, because the thought of sitting down and writing a book was like nails on a chalkboard to me. However, I felt like if I didn't write this book, there would be people out there that would be suffering. And, we want to do anything we can do to help, right? And so the catalyst came from when I was working with some clients and I was helping them through micro habits to help them cultivate the power of play. Created videos, and it was essentially like a course. Mm-hmm. Then someone came up and said, is there a book that's a companion for this? Because I want to have a reference. I said, no, sorry. After the third time someone asking me about this dang book, I said, all right, maybe I should actually sit down and write it. And so that was the catalyst. The spark from that was just, helping people use play to better their lives.
That's amazing. And it kind of reminds me of, even that kind of remark about it was painful for you to write the book.
It wasn't. I'll tell you about my process in a moment, but the thought of it,
but actually doing it was fun.
Yes, because I did it in a very playful way. So I didn't do it the typical, I'm a writer, I'm going to lock myself in a cabin, and I'm not going to come out until I've written 100,000 words. No.
Yeah.
I didn't do that. I did it differently.
Yeah. Well, it makes me think of like what gets me to write is, and an advice I got from one of my Stanford English professors, and he was like, write for the wastebasket. So a lot of times people get stuck because once again, you go back to perfectionism, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to suck at this, or I'm not going to be able to be Walt Whitman or whatnot. And it's like, but if you write for the wastebasket, if you kind of write to get your ideas out and you make it kind of fun, it's a different process, right?
Agreed.
But if you have that nagging perfectionism, then it becomes like, oh, this is work, right? And it's such a different mentality. So I asked the collective group here that came to come see you what their definition of play is. You saw some of them.
Yes.
What's your definition of play, Gary?
For me, play is doing anything where the enjoyment is the act of doing it. So it can be anything. It can be reading a book.
Mhm.
And if you do it right, it can actually be your work. Because if you think about anything that you played, especially when you're a kid, you were completely immersed in the experience. Time probably flew by like that.
Yeah.
If you were playing with other people, you collaborated, you co-created, and you created something at the end of it, that was better than what you could have thought of. And it's a joyous experience. Now, for again, most people, their work, they're like, oh my God, I have to go to work.
Yeah.
But just imagine getting in the state of flow of your work. That can be play.
Well,
That's why,
that's
we say the opposite of play is perfection.
While you were talking, the first thing that came into my head was flow.
Yeah, it's the same as
Play
flow.
is flow, right? Because
Like,
when you're focused and it's like you're just in the enjoyment and the task at hand, it's like time flies, right? And then when
Agreed.
you're doing something the opposite, it's like, oh God, like watching paint dry, right? So why do you think, I think, like I mentioned before Morgan came, my daughter, she had a play date. They were, oh my God, it was a lot, but they were having a blast. They were like getting like our broom and playing soccer with some, I mean, they created fun. Like, you know what I mean? In our house, they built like a fort out of like books. It was like, there was a lot of yelling, but why do people lose that sense of fun and spontaneity and creativity? Why are people so serious? Why do people lose their, that child awe when they get older, that spontaneity as they get older?
I feel a number of reasons. One of the big ones is conditioning. If you think about when we're in school, we are taught that there is a right answer and a wrong answer. You take quizzes, hey, you got 80% correct, you got a B. And it starts to condition our brain that there is only one right answer. Well, play is very messy. Play, there are multiple right answers. But when you get in the state where you, again, have to be a perfectionist, you get out of that default mind in the prefrontal cortex where creativity and play is stored. And oftentimes you get into the limbic system. This is the fight, flight, or freeze part of your brain. And that's not where play is. You actually lose the ability to play when you're in that state. And adults, we're in that state a lot, unfortunately. And since this is all about play, I would love to say a riddle to prove my point about us adults, and we lose the ability to think broadly, if that's cool with you, Mon.
Yes, please.
All right, cool. And so for those of you who are watching live, put your answer into the chat. And let's just see. First one correct will get an audio version of my book. I'll give you a code for an audio book version. So we have Fred and Jake. They are brothers. They were born at the exact same time, at the exact same hospital, exact same days, exact same year, to the exact same parents. And they are not twins. How is this possible?
So if you know the answer, type it in the comments.
Yes, we would love to know. We got adopted brother. That's not correct.
Donors. Here, I'm going to check through if there's any LinkedIn.
One is adopted. Not correct.
No. Let me mute myself.
Which one is it? Two mothers, different mothers. These are interesting, but not correct. Multiple personalities. I love these. All right, here we go. Let's do this. they're non-identical twins. No, and they're not clones either. Different fathers. Oh no, exact same parents. All right, I'll say it again. Fred and Jake born at the same hospital, same day, same year, to the same parents, but they're not twins. How is this possible? And same time, exact same time.
Jeetha says different time zones.
All right, I will give you the answer. The answer is because they are triplets. There's another child there.
That was a good one.
And so I do this riddle. We all have heard of triplets. We've all heard of triplets. However, because we're conditioned to think very linear, I sort of fooled you by saying just Fred and Jake, and I was priming your brain to only think about twins. You know what a triplet is. We've seen triplets, but yet in that moment we couldn't access the ability to think outside of the box. That is what our conditioning has done to us, and that is one of the reasons why we have a hard time embracing play, embracing creativity, thinking outside the box. NASA did a study starting with kindergartners where they gave them this test on divergent thinking, and they found that in this cohort 95% of them had genius levels of creativity. 95%. They kept giving them this test. And starting at age 13, it started to decrease. And it got so bad when this cohort was 18, they stopped the test altogether because only 3% of them had genius levels of creativity. Same group of people, but yet over time, their ability to be creative diminished. And it has nothing to do with them as a person. They are perfect just the way that they are, just like you are perfect, just the way that you are. It's the environment all around you. If you start getting these signals that you're not good enough, and you start seeing things like, oh, that's a horse, my drawing does not look like a horse, you start to have this dialogue in your head that you're not creative. You're not playful. You have to be serious. And before you know it, you've lost your ability to be creative. You lost your ability to be playful, and you're just an adult.
And then I go back in after that.
Welcome back.
The adult comes in. Yeah, this is such a fascinating conversation because you don't talk about play a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I could say, being a mother of 7-year-olds, when you have children, all you talk about is play dates, who they want to play with, and like everything is about play. What do you think some of the barriers are for play for you or the folks who are on this call? What are the top barriers of play in general?
Yeah. Well, you said the biggest one in the beginning is perfectionism. If you're trying to be perfect, you're not going to be playful. That's the big one. The other thing is our hustle and grind culture. Because when we're in that state of gotta work, I will play when the work is done, you're never going to play. That is one of those things where you keep pushing play away and away and away because I don't. If you're anything like me, your to-do list multiplies every night. I swear, I'm trying really hard to get a handle on this to-do list, but it's like Gremlins. If you see that movie, like they sort of multiply when they get wet and whatnot. Like I swear, I come back the next day and it's like, oh my gosh, my to-do list is longer than a CVS receipt. And if you know, you know. But when you're in that state of burnout, again, your brain is activating the sympathetic nervous system. So that's the fight, flight, or freeze. And you are it is literally turning off the creative center of your brain because it is reserving all energies to fight or to to run or to freeze. And that brain is taken away. So that's one of the biggest things for adults is that We're too serious.
I totally agree. I mean, and it's funny that you bring up burnout because I feel like, especially after this pandemic, you know, I've not heard the word burnout used so much as it has these past 3 years because people are dealing with stress at home. You know, parents were working, you know, with kids. Now there's like mass layoffs. You've heard of what happened with Twitter and then now Meta. People are kind of afraid of keeping their jobs. And it's just, how do you have fun when it's like, when all of this stuff is going out? Like, so are you saying that fun is the antidote for burnout?
Yes. And well, I would say play and joy and things like that, because some things that spark joy isn't necessarily fun. However, when you are in that state of burnout, because the way that your brain is reacting, you're not going to want to play. So the first thing that I advise people to do is rest.
Well, that brings me to my next question for you, which is, how do you get better at playing? So you rest. What else? Like what?
Yeah.
I when I tell you that I really sucked at playing, I was the college kid, who would go to a party with my friends because they dragged me out, and I would be reading a book in the corner because I was studying for the test. Like I just did not know how to play. Like, how do you get better at playing?
So to that point, most people, they think of play as one or two things. You know, they like playful activities. They think of it as like sports, or they think of it as goofing off and maybe video games. Dr. Stuart Brown, he wrote this amazing book called Play. So I like to say the doctor wrote the book on play. And one of the things that he advised people to do, and the people that I work with, I tell them to do the exact same thing, and it's called a play history. And when you take a play history, it is looking back. So we have to sort of go back and think about when you were younger. What were the things that you did that just brought you joy, that you did just for the sake of it? And again, I'll tell you a quick story. I was working with this gal. She grew up in England. It was it was after the war. Her parents were very serious, and she said, "Gary, we didn't play." And I said, "Okay." And I had her do a play history, and I said, "What did you just do just because it brought you joy?" And she said, and it was funny. You start to hit on something, like when you start to like get a little smirk. She's like, "I used to read books." And I was like, "Cool, awesome." And she's like, "But that's so nerdy." I was like, "Well, tell me about the books. What did you read?" And of course, her parents were the type that is like, you got to get good grades. And so she would sneak off and read those like young adult novels. And that was something, again, that brought her so much joy. So to her, that was play. She would get lost in it. And so my advice to people is, what is that thing that you used to do when you were younger, and how can you mine it for the essence of it, and then do something similar as an adult and do it in small doses so that you can get better at it.
Okay, so I'm liking this. This is spur of the moment. Yeah. Folks who are watching this right now in the live Zoom audience, for folks who are watching this on live stream, answer it in the comments. What's the one thing that you used to do when you were younger that brought you joy that you need to do more of now? Okay? So I'm going to type it in. Don't press send till I tell you. Don't press send. Okay. So in the live Zoom audience and also in the chat, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Dance, ride my bicycle, getting outside, dancing, playing with friends. I see a lot of dancing. We need to have like a dance. Can you got some music, some soca or like some?
Sorry. Well,
that is not the music you jam to.
No,
sorry.
That's not it.
You're a great speaker, but not a great DJ. Sorry.
Hold on. Here we go. Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Let's see if this works.
Robot.
Anyway, all right.
I love that. mindset, let go. I have a lot of dancing and Will's riding his bike, art.
So to that point, Dr. Stuart Brown, and I talk about this in my book. There are different play archetypes, and in seeing that there's so many people that are into dance, your play archetype might be the kinesthetic. It might be movement. So another quick story. So I was working with this gal during the pandemic. She did a play history, and one of the things that she loved to do was, when she was younger, was play with dolls. And she said, Gary, there's no way I'm going to go out and buy some Barbies. And I said, no. I'm not, unless you want to, that's not the challenge. But let's dig deeper. What about that brought you joy? And she used to talk about how she was the mom, and they were her family, and so what we came up with nurturing. And I said, all right, cool. So of that, the essence was you love to nurture things. And I said, as an adult, what is something you could nurture that would bring out this sense of play? And after doing some brainstorming, it was planting and gardening. And she was a little nervous because she was like, well, I haven't necessarily been good at keeping anything alive like that. And so then we said, well, what is something that would be harder to kill as a plant? And we, succulents, they don't take much water, and they're easy to take care of. So she started with a few succulents, and along the course of the 2 years of the pandemic, she got even more. She got like hooked on it, and she started studying about how to propagate them. And I'm happy to report that now she has over 250 plants in her house. And it was, again, she got into the spirit of play.
I have to say though, I've been known to kill a few cacti.
So it is possible. It is
they
possible.
Can die.
They can die.
So I have a funny story that I think kind of relates to this. So my daughter loves swimming. And so I used to always take her to the pool, and then I would just like literally bring my laptop and work at the pool. And then I started to tell myself, I used to love swimming. And so what I started to do was I would actually swim laps with her. And that was such a game changer. And this was the summer. And like we would just swim, and like we bonded, and I got to kind of coach her a little bit. And it was just nice. But it was this whole notion of like, I was like, well, I'm the parent. And like, and I see this in swim, like all the parents just literally drop off their kids and they go. And I started staying and just swimming and playing in the water and doing backflips with her. And that was like, it really bonded us. But it also, like, I had fun, right? And I forgot how much I love the water. But like, there's those little, like the play history or what is it, play history,
yep,
where you have to kind of go back and just remember, oh my gosh, I used to, before I shelved that, because I started my own business, or I was a student, or I did XYZ, I used to have fun, right? But I had to really think about it.
We do.
Right?
A wise person once told me that adults are just kids who atrophied. So if you think about any muscle that atrophied, you have to go back, you have to slowly work at it. And yeah, we used to play, but we forgot. And it just takes a little bit of effort and intention and allowing yourself to look silly to like start to bring that back.
So which brings me to my next question, right? So a lot of people said dance, right, as something that they wish they used to love doing that they don't do more. And there's this one quote, I'm sure you've all seen it, which is just dance like no one is watching, right? So it kind of really talks about being free and not worrying about the judgment of others. So
Agreed.
How important is it letting go of what other people think, caring about what people think of you, whether you're coordinated or not, in terms of the importance of play, joy? Because I really feel like there's like a piece in that, with the whole perfectionism and stuff like that.
Yes.
But like not caring. Like I love seeing you, Gary, and also Jeff, and like Kathy, who've all been guests. It's like this joy. Like I admire you guys so much. Like, you're able to do stand up, you're able to like make people laugh, and it's just like there's not this sense of like judgment that you have. It's like very opening. And like how how do you let go of that notion of caring and how important it is to fun and having, playing?
The first thing is to get started. Then you'll notice when you're in a state of play, your judgment filter is turned off. So there was this researcher, Dr. Charles Lamb. This was out of Berkeley, I believe. He has an amazing TED Talk on it. If you look at, I think it's called Your Brain on Improv. And the first set of experiments he did was with jazz musicians, and he put them in an MRI machine. He had them play sheet music, so just music right off, just regular music. Measured the brain, see what areas of the brain were activated. Then he had them improvise, so jamming. And he found out when they were jamming, so they were in the state of play, they were playing, they were making things up. The judgment part of your brain goes dormant, and the creativity a part of your brain lights up like a Christmas tree. So to get rid of that sort of judgment, critic that's like on your shoulder, you have to get started, and you have to slowly get into play. Now, I know in the beginning it's probably super loud, and it's not like it goes away. It's just that when you're exercising that play muscle, the other part gets louder, and that little voice that's saying, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, it just gets quieter and quieter and quieter. So if you want to get rid of it, you just need to play. And I know it seems like a double-edged sword, because the critics like, don't do it because people are going to make fun of you. However, like when you were talking about with your example, you just started swimming, and then you forgot about everything else, and you were in the moment.
Yeah, no, totally. I love that. And we're going to open it up to questions pretty soon, so get ready. I feel like that judgment piece has always been kind of the thing that has prevented me from playing. So I love that whole notion of it's practice, and you don't think you have to practice play. It should be kind of natural, but for us adults, it's not natural because we haven't played. There's no recess. There's no. You know what I mean? There's no recess where we're every day expected to play. Agreed. And so we almost have to schedule that in.
We do.
In a lot of ways, right? Do you schedule it in your schedule?
Yes. And
what
so
like in your calendar, it's like 12 to 1. Sorry guys, I'm playing. Like what do you how do you schedule in play?
I have blocks. I don't call it blocks because blocks seem so limiting. I have windows of time that is open to interpretation. And I have what is called a blank check for play. And I give my body what I need in that moment. But the main thing is to create a space, a container that allow me to do it, because we will always put other things in front of that. And that's why I called the book The Playful Rebellion, in that we have to rebel against the status quo. We have to rebel against our conditioning that makes us think that play is only something you can do after you finish your work. And there's a lot of research that show that when you are playing, or if you don't want to use the P word, forget rest, self-care, whatever it is that's going to get you to stop doing your damn work. They had this study. It was with Microsoft, where they followed their employees, and this is during the pandemic, from meeting to meeting to meeting, and then they had like brain scans, and they found that employees that went from meeting to meeting to meeting with no breaks, by the 5th meeting, their brains were fried. I mean, literally like fried. And matter of fact, hold on, I think I have. I'll show you real quick what it looks like. And then they had a group of people that.
Oh, let me hold on. Okay, now you can share.
Oh no, I'm not going to share I'm going to put it. Right there. So it's all good. I got you. And then they had a group of people that what ended up happening was they there it is. All right, cool. So on the top, you see people that went from meeting to meeting to meeting, and by like the third meeting, as you can see, their brains are fried completely. The red and yellow means that they're exhausted, and at this point you're not cognitively capable of actually doing work. You're more likely to make mistakes and whatnot. And then you have the other group that took breaks in between meetings, and it can be as simple as 5 minutes. And as you can see, in some cases, by the end, like end of meeting 4 or whatnot, they are completely chill and zen. And so I share all that just to say, for the adults that need, like, why should I do it? Well, if you want to be more productive, if you want to get more done, you will schedule those blocks so that you can rejuvenate. So
Yeah.
that's, you do what you want to do. I'm going to do the thing that's going to allow me to do more work.
As an introvert, yes, I love that. One of the things that I hated about corporate, which is why I left, is the back-to-back meetings. And like as an introvert, I need space to just kind of like
Recharge.
Decompress, recharge, etc. So before I ask or go through some of the comments, what does play? So you mentioned that you have to schedule time for play.
Yep.
What does that play look like for you?
It varies. So I have all kinds of stuff at an arm's length. So I have these things they're called story cubes. Sometimes I do because I'm an improviser, so I like to stay fresh, to be able to think on my feet.
Yeah.
So I like to do some word association stuff. If I've been sitting for a long period of time, I will literally get up and do some weird dancing. I will go hop on the Peloton. I live in Southern California, so the weather is pretty nice most of the time, so I can go outside. My son, before he started school, a lot of times play did revolve around him because he would hear my door open, and it was like the signal was like, oh, Dada's on a break, and he was like, hey Dada, can we play? And I was like, and my wife would like look at me, and I was like, yep, I got you.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I know me and my daughter and my husband started like dance breaks. And so we just would turn on a music, Stevie Wonder, and start dancing. So some comments, I want to read some of the comments in the Play to Recover by Jetha. I love that. Stacy says, yep, I schedule it in as well. It's important. You have to protect the time, put the phone on silence, just allow yourself to be yourself and see what happens. In a hectic life, scheduled reprieve is essential. And same thing, Michelle, I block out time for self-care, sun, nature, sometimes water or therapy. And that's the thing, fun could just be being out in nature, watching a sunset. And Katie, my daughter's 4th grade teacher seems to be taking recess away from the kids. So yeah, we need to change that, right? So I kind of, thanks. I love your sound effects. Like I said, I wish I could just kind of take you wherever I go, just so that see an a-hole driver and just like you, and the music just starts.
Real quick, if I can mention the thing about scheduling meetings. So this was something when I would work with clients, I would say a lot of times they would say, well, what if my boss is looking for me or something like that? They would be scared. And I said, where's the place where you can go, and if someone were to say, where were you would like get no backlash, and it's in a meeting, right? Because when you're in a meeting, you're not supposed to answer your phone, or you're supposed to be present. So I just say you're in a meeting, put it on your calendar. It is a meeting with yourself. Then you can put your phone on do not disturb, and then you can jump back into it. And if anyone were to give you any flack, just like, I was in a meeting. And they're like, oh, I'm sorry. Like most of the time they don't question that, but they like, oh, I'm so sorry. Because again, you're supposed to be present. So
I love that.
If you need an excuse, just say you're in a meeting, and yes, you have to protect that time, because if you don't, someone will take that time away.
Yeah, I love that. So I kind of want to open this to questions. Do we have any kind of questions for the folks who are in the room? I know we always have like our regulars who kind of ask, who's really good at asking questions. I mean, hint, Michelle. Will. Anyone want to ask a question?
They're like, I don't want to talk about that B word.
I'll jump in if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, please ask your question.
Thank you, Len and Gary. Super inspired by you. And I guess my question, as someone who has found a sense of play because I left the old corporate world, the play part I've been figuring out, and I'm just having the best year of my life, to tell you the truth. My question for you, as I begin to write my book, I want to know what's the number one piece of advice you would give to someone? Because I have so many stories to tell. I just need to get to that point of not being overwhelmed by the idea of sitting with pen to paper because I'm having too much fun, if I'm making any sense at all.
Yep. Nope. Makes perfect sense. So, well, I have two tips. One, Lon hit it perfectly of, write that crappy first draft. So just get it all out there. And don't be worried about having too much because, again, you're going to end up having to cut back anyway. Just get it all out of your head into whatever device, whether it's on paper or Word or whatever. And then how I did it was a bit unconventional because again, the thought of like sitting down and writing what didn't seem playful for me. And what I did was, after having the outline of my book, what chapters and what it was going to be about, I had a meeting every week with my editor. And we met on Zoom and I would tell stories. I would essentially like talk out what my thoughts were for the chapter. And then we transcribed it. And then that was easier for me to work with because once I get the transcription, then I was like, oh yeah, all right, cool. And then I start to move things around. And again, I made it playful for me. So I call it the Mary Poppins effect, for every job that must be done, add a bit of fun and, snap, the job's a game. So hopefully that was helpful.
Perfect. Thank you very much. It is.
I love that. Thanks so much, Will. Great question.
Yeah. Love
it. Awesome. Anyone else have a question? If not, I will ask one. Nope. Okay, so the question I have is, we talk about culture a lot. If I am a owner of a business or a manager, how do I create a culture of play? Or, of course, hiring people who are playful, but how do you create a culture that allows for play?
I like to say the environment always wins. If you have an environment that is conducive to play, the people would play. Because I would work with leaders and they were like, I don't get it. My employees aren't playing. I say, well, tell me about what's going on. They're like, well, we had this ping pong table and we have all this cool stuff. We got the keg, but everyone is just stuck at their desk. And I asked them, as the leader, what are your habits? Are you walking the walk? And then they usually say no. And that, believe it or not, people are going to unconsciously do whatever the leader's doing. So if the leader is not taking a lunch, if the leader is, powering through, not, being playful, well, then the people in their care are not going to feel compelled to do it. So that's the first thing. Understand that the leader, whatever the leader does is going to trickle down. But then the other thing is realize that, as I talked about before, everyone has a different form of play. So understand, your team, what lights them up, what do they think of as play, and, try to incorporate some of that, at the end of the day. But here's the other thing. How can we have, so I talk about play and playfulness. So before a meeting, if you want everyone to feel loose and whatnot, how can, maybe do like a little grounding activity? All right, everyone, before we get into this meeting, I know it's been kind of stressful. Let's just take, 3 group breaths together. And again, that may not seem like play, but again, it is very light. It's not the typical, gotta get down to business. It's more, sort of, realizing that we need to get out of that sort of stress to the more like flow-like state.
Yeah.
And then how can you help everyone have those moments where they can just be? One of my clients, they institute a rule. It took about 3 months to get there. So don't think it's going to be perfect out of the bat. But on Fridays, there are no meetings at all. No meetings whatsoever. And because play, like I said, play is not just we're doing these activities. Play is in the work too. So how can you create an environment where your team can get into that state of flow and play with their work?
I love that. So two things that kind of struck me with what you just said. The people have different notions of play, and I kind of think of, being an introvert, most of work and school is built for extroverts. And I remember when we'd have any kind of activity like a boat cruise or like, the Christmas party or, icebreakers. There's nothing introverts hate more than forced icebreakers like at the beginning of an event. And I just remember, like, whenever they would do an icebreaker, I would run away and then go to the bathroom until it was over. But like being considerate of like the folks who are in the room and understanding. But I could do a breathing exercise like it's no one's business. But understanding who's in the room and that people are all very different, right?
Yeah.
The other thing that really struck me was looking back at myself as a leader. I would be the one that would say to my team, take your PTO, go on vacation, have fun, don't work so late, but I'd be working late. Or I would send a email at 10 o'clock at night and I would say, hey, I don't want you to read this, but I'm doing it because I don't want to forget. But I'm now looking back and just thinking, God, what an a-hole I was as a manager, because that's basically saying, oh, well, I'm working till 10 o'clock at night and I don't want you to read it, but look how hard, like I was an a-hole. Like, granted, a lot of it is because I just have a short-term memory and I will not forget to send it. So I would send it. But but it's also that whole notion of giving permission by modeling that behavior. So if you want your team to have work-life balance, you have to have work-life balance. You have to go home at 5 or 6, or you have to create those boundaries because you are modeling that behavior. And it's the same thing being a parent. I could say one thing to my daughter, but if I'm not doing it, she's not going to model that behavior.
Agreed. And
right?
Yeah, and there's so many tools nowadays, especially, yes, they talk about like circadian rhythms and some people, maybe they work better at night versus morning. But you can do now, like, I've mailed this in Gmail. So sometimes I do get in these spurts where I'm working kind of late, but again, I don't want to like freak people out. So I do all these emails and I have it scheduled to send during a normal time. But just because I'm working this way doesn't mean that they have to. But then on the flip side, I'm not going to necessarily get started until later. But so that's a great point there. And then one of the other things I want to note, because Stacey mentioned, like, understand what motivates the individuals and use that. If we can, so there's an amazing book called Primed to Perform. It was written by Neil Dosey and Lindsay McGregor, and it talks about intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. Most corporations are modeled around extrinsic motivators, which will get you to do a task perfectly. So if you want someone to, it's more about tactical performance, repeat this over and over again, don't make any mistakes, then yes, these motivators will help. However, if you need someone to be creative, be able to think outside the box, it's not going to help. And I will tell you why. So the extrinsic motivators are emotional pressure, as in don't make a mistake. Economic pressure, it has to do with either you're getting money or money potentially taken away from you. And then inertia. We've always done it this way. And so again, those motivators will get someone to be consistent at doing the job. However, when we need them to think outside the box, because of those pressures, they're not going to. Because again, if you happen to do something outside the norm and you got punished for it, why would you ever think of like doing something outside the norm? The intrinsic motivators, which will get people to, one, enjoy their job even more and be creative, so you get both, is play, purpose, and potential. So play is, you see the work as play. You see the work that you're doing as a challenge to overcome. Again, you get into that state of flow. Purpose is the outcome of the work. I did this work and oh my gosh, look at the impact of the work. And then potential, your personal potential, the potential of things that can happen as a result of you doing the work. So as you notice with the intrinsic motivators, it has to do with the work. Everything is surrounded with the work. And then the extrinsic has nothing to do with the work. It's everything outside of that.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited. I mean, Gary, first, as we kind of close up because we're almost at the top of the hour, how can we find you? I just put a link to your book. Folks, buy this book right now. I know many of you have. And then once you read it, make sure you leave a review. Take a picture of it, put it on social. How else can we help you, Gary?
Yeah, well, by modeling this behavior, I wrote this book mostly as a reminder for myself. It's one thing like to know about play, but again, if you're not exercising and it's not part of the practice, it's not going to stick. So this is very helpful for me. And I will tell you that have grace on yourself because I've studied this for almost about a decade, and I still have moments when I sort of fall back on that conditional thinking. And so you can help me greatly by, again, just trying it out. It's the ripple effect. If you are showing up in a way that is more playful and more inclusive, you're going to give permission to someone else, and that's just going to make me feel good. And then, so I want to do a demonstration. Because I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of sort of like type A people that like want to go. When you incorporate play into your work, it ends up making you more money because you're more productive, you're more creative. So yeah. So if you like what you saw, my site is breakthroughplay.com. I'm on all the socials at Gary Ware.
That is a cool trick. Oh my gosh. I love that. So if you guys can turn on your video cameras for everyone who's in the live Zoom audience, unmute yourself because Gary deserves a round of applause. Before we do though, this is the last micro learning for this year. We close it off on a high note with Gary. Make sure you buy his book, but if you can, turn on your video cameras for those who are in the live Zoom audience, put it on gallery mode so we can give a big round of applause for Gary. And Gary, put your sound effects on. We need it right now. Yay!
Thank you.
Woo-hoo! Thank you so much, Gary. So proud of you. This book is amazing. Make sure you guys go out and buy it. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And I'll see you guys next year. If you have any recommendation or people you want to see for 2023, please send it my way. I'm taking all of November and December off, and I'm going to have fun. Okay. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye. Thanks, Gary. You're the best.
Bye.
See